Let me start by saying that Iran is a very complex country. And somehow I have the impression that I follow the media in the West, and then I read the newspapers in Iran, that it's either totally black or totally white. And I don't think it's neither black nor white. There are so many different colors in between. And there is no one Iran in this respect. There are many faces to Iran. Iran is a country that has a population of over 75 million people. Probably half of them are not Persians. So here it's again, you can see that the differences of ethnic groups, and there are people who are liberal, reformist, pragmatic, radicals, conservative, extremists, you name them, they fall into different categories. But let me maybe begin to understand, try and explain what was the essence of this revolution. And here again, I think somehow people not fully understand, or what I think it's not proper understanding of the nature of the Islamic revolution. Well, of course, Islamic revolution, everything today is Islamic. So Islamic revolution, Islamic radicalism, Islamic terrorism, everything is Islamic. Then the question is, was this revolution Islamic to begin with? In 1979, when people went to the streets demonstrating against the Shah and bringing about the change, well, it was Islamic. Islam is everything. Islam is a religion that covers all your fields of life. So if it was social, economic, political, cultural, anti-imperialist, you can call it Islamic. But I can tell you, the people who went to the streets in 1979, they did not have in their mind that to have an Islamic government led by Ayatollah. They wanted Islamic revolution or Islamic republic exactly, or more or less, like the young people in Al-Tahrir Square 2.5 years ago went to the streets removing President Mubarak, and then did they want Muslim brothers? You know that they didn't want, and they reversed that process. So it's not, what was the revolution about? It was not about, it was a revolution that led to the formation of Islamic Republic or Islamic regime rather than by intention of the people. I lived in Iran the last 2 years of the Shah's rule. And I saw the people demonstrating in the street. I saw the difficulties they are facing. The revolution was about giving hope to the young people of Iran, to the young generation, having better services, health services, education services, housing. I can narrow down the aim of the revolutionaries into concepts of social justice and political justice. I can narrow it down further and say 2 words. It was a revolution for bread and freedom, for welfare and liberties. 34 years after, and it's related to what you have seen with Rouhani coming here, because this is the outcome of the frustration of young Iranian people who 34 years after the Islamic revolution don't have better welfare, nor do they have greater freedom. Iran was not a democracy. I learned to appreciate democracy when I went to live in Iran for 2 years. For the first time living in a non-democratic country, I realized what is the significance of democracy. I'm not here to tell you that the Shah was a Democrat. I'm telling you there is no greater freedom today in Iran that used to be under the Shah. Under the Shah, to speak against him was a crime. Today, to speak against the Ayatollahs is a sin. I don't know which one is better. And is there greater welfare to the people of Iran today that used to be under the Shah? I doubt. The rich became richer, or maybe there are different people who are rich, and the poor people remain poor. And the gap remained huge. So I think it's important, because if we don't understand that the revolution was not solely to establish, to bring Ayatollah Khomeini or Khamenei or another Ayatollah to power, because in the revolution there were left-wing Iranian intellectuals, pro-Soviet communists, liberal intellectuals, all spectrum of political movements, including the clergy. What Khomeini managed to do is basically to become the symbol of the revolution and to somehow impose his rule over this revolution, and with all the others thinking that they are cooperating with Ayatollah Khomeini so that he will bring them the power and they will go to mosque and they can take control of the government, he had other plans. Even in terms of ideology, within the clergy, there is no one understanding of Islam. You know, again, let's be honest, not all Muslims are radicals, and not all radicals are terrorists. And not all people in Islam or clerics in Iran think like Khomeini. And I'll give you, I think one example will be sufficient to illustrate what I'm saying. When Khomeini came to Iran in 1979, victorious after 14 years in exile, there have been 7 grand ayatollahs in Iran, 7 great highest authorities in Islam, in Shiite Islam in Iran. None of them supported Khomeini's philosophy. The number 1 ayatollah in Iran, the highest ranking ayatollah living then in Iran, when Shariat Madari, he went under house arrest until he passed away 7 years later. Imagine Ayatollah Khomeini came to power, the first thing he put the highest ranking ayatollah into house arrest. And he's not the only one. Ayatollah Khomeini nominated a person to be his successor, Ayatollah Montazeri. And then he started criticizing the realities of life under Islamic Revolution. He put under house arrest until he passed away 4 years ago. I'm giving it not as a sign of the cruel character of this regime, but rather to understand that there are different interpretations. What happened in Islam, in Iran, is more than Islamic revolution. That was a revolution in the interpretation of Islam. When Ayatollah Khomeini taking a very extremist interpretation, bringing it to the center, and in the case of Iran, it bringing it to power. A leading Iranian intellectual, Professor Abdul Karim Soroush, who was the man who was the head of the Iranian Cultural Revolution, who shut down universities for 3 years for Islamization, very close to Ayatollah Khomeini. Now he's very against. He's living in Boston area. Because he saw what happened in Iran, and many of these first day revolutionaries became anti-revolutionary or dissociated themselves from the revolution. It so happens in all revolutions, you know. People, not only human beings grow old, but revolutions also mature, and they change their philosophy, or at least the revolutionaries of the past I was going over my writings from the late 80s and early 90s, and I was seeing who are the people that I called radicals. All the radicals of the late 80s have become the most liberals and reformists of the late 90s. Why? Because in due time you realize the limit of your ability to continue with the same philosophy. And I'll come to it in a moment. What I want to say here is that there are also different trends within the political elite in Iran, not only within the religious establishment. And going back to Abdul Karim Soroush, I think I was in his lecture in 1995. He was still in Iran when he came to the United States. He gave a talk in which he said the following sentence. He said, "Of course there is one Islam. Well, of course, there's one Judaism, one Christianity, one Islam, but we don't live today as Christianity has been, or Judaism has been 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, or Islam has been 1,400 years ago. We live today by our interpretation of the principles of our faith, and our interpretation vary and change." And he said a sentence that contains the whole philosophy very nicely. He said, there is one Islam, but there is no one interpretation of Islam. There is no one interpretation that is better than the other. Then there is no final interpretation of Islam. And in a very courageous way, he added another line. And there can be no official interpretation of Islam. Namely, even the Grand Ayatollah, supreme leader, whoever has the authority in understanding Islam, cannot tell you this is the only way to understand your religion. Well, of course, since then he's wandering around in the West and not back in Iran. So there are also people who in Iran who speak up. You saw the students uprising in Iran 1999. You saw them in 2009 after the elections that led to so-called election of Ahmadinejad in 2009. And they have been suppressed. So here you see the two faces of the Islamic regime. The youth, the young people who are eager to see change, they go to the street and demonstrate. And they also, in times that they are permitted, they produce wonderful art and literature and poetry and you name it. So 60% of the students in Iran are female. 60 years ago, there was not a single girl in Iranian university. This is a significant change. It's not because of this regime, because life has changed in Iran between the Shah and today. In the last 60, since World War I, there was a tremendous revolution and change in the country. Iran has a good film industry. Iran has a good poetry. The art you can see in Iran. And even newspapers, under Khatami, there have been newspapers published were very, very interesting to read. I read Arabic papers, I read Persian newspapers. I tell you, you couldn't compare the newspapers in the 90s, late 90s of Iran with the newspapers of Iraq or Syria. And I was speaking like this some time ago in Jerusalem, and one of our officials asked me, how you speak about some kind of free expression in Iran, and 100 newspapers were shut down in 5 years in Iran. So, well, that's the answer. If you shut down 100 liberal newspapers, it means there used to be 100 liberal newspapers. Where else in the Middle East you have 100 liberal news? Iran is not democracy. Don't go and buy tickets. I'll come to the other phase. I just want to say the complexity. I was speaking with a friend of mine. I always quote him, an Iranian professor, allowed this rather dichotomy of suppression and free expression in Iran. And he told me, they tell you they don't have freedom of expression. That's not true. We have freedom of expression. What we don't have is freedom after expression. So I think that's the picture in Iran. They see suppression, and we are now, I think, in the beginning of something that may develop to what used to be in 1997. But 1997 didn't produce change in significant issues in Iran, like relations with the US or the nuclear issue. And I doubt if to date we will see this change, but I'll come to it in a moment. The problem is that the head of the government in Iran is not the president. By the way, the president in Iran often enough had their disagreements with the supreme leader. Well, let me go back on the history of Iranian presidents. There have been only 6 on, I think, so it's easy. The first one was impeached and fled the country, living today in Paris. The second one was assassinated, Rajais, shortly after election, so he cannot pass judgment. 4 weeks after the election, he was assassinated. The third was Rafsanjani, who was not allowed to run in these last elections. See how much he is faithful, or they consider him faithful. The fourth is Khatami, who could not run, and he supported Rouhani, and he's not very friendly with the supreme leader. The fifth is Ahmadinejad, that came into conflict with Rouhani, and now we have the new president. It shows that ultimately there is a tension between a head of the executive and the supreme leader. The head of the executive, with the exception of Ahmadinejad, all presidents tend to be more pragmatic in power than they used to be before or after. Why? Because with authority comes responsibility. And when you have to feed 75 million people, you turn to be more pragmatic. And pragmatism is also in foreign relations, and it is in domestic issues. I'll give you one example. There was a war between Azerbaijan and Armenia, Nagorno-Karabakh, 20 years ago. Iran is a Shiite country. Azerbaijan is a Shiite country. Armenia is Christian. Whom did Iran support? The Christians. Iran supported Armenia. Is it ideology? No. Because it's something that is really in their basic national interest. And I could have gone on and on to show you that wherever there was a clash between ideology and interest, in Islamic regime, interest won over ideology. This has to be continued, but let me see who is in power in Iran. In power in Iran are the people with the follower of Ayatollah Khomeini, supporter of Khamenei, who claim to be speaking in name of God, and I don't know how they get it, what is the true will of God, but they know. And if it's not enough, they have the support of the military and the Revolutionary Guards. So honestly, if you are a revolution, you are speaking in the name of God, and you have the Revolutionary Guards on your other hand, what else do you need? What else? The other thing that they needed, and they have plenty of, is the determination to fight for their survival. And I'd give you just one quote from the mentor, or the man who was said to be mentor of Ahmadinejad. In a Friday sermon, when the Iranian Revolutionary Guards were suppressing students in the streets, he said the following sentence: "Whoever thinks that Islam is religion of mercy does not understand the meaning of Islam." And he said, and this is blasphemy, to say that Islam is not religion of mercy. They start every statement by Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of the God the merciful. And he goes on and says, Islam is a religion that dictates to us to take sharp sword and cut the heads and tongues of people who speak or act against us. So this is the art of suppression that the Iranians are so good. They learned the lesson of their revolution, and they said openly, we are not going to let them, the students, to do to us what we did to the Shah himself. And if you ask yourself why Bashar al-Assad was so stubborn and unwilling to compromise, this is because of the support of the Iranians and the teaching of the Iranian philosophy: never make any concession to opposition. The Shah did it to us, and he kicked him out of the country. Here is the nature of this regime. There are different faces, and I say that there is also the nice face of Iran. We cannot ignore it. But on the other hand, these nice people don't have any say in formulating the policy. We had 8 years of Khatami. Who is Khatami? Khatami was liberal intellectual. Compared with Rouhani, Khatami was really liberal. Now I want to come to this change that we have seen in Iran recently. Let me make one point. I do believe, I am of these people in Iran that maybe you can call naive, or I don't know what, optimistic, dreamers. I wrote an article, and then I thought it's very, very harsh article about Iran and how harsh we should be to Iran. And I had friends of mine in Los Angeles writing to me, Iranian Jews in Los Angeles, that I am so nice to the Iranians, and I don't know how they get it. You have to wake up every day, and they said that to the Ayatollahs or to satisfy some people in the West. I'm not there. I think that what happened in Iran is a really significant change with the potential, and only so far I can say potential, of policy change in Iran. I doubt if we get to the nuclear issue. And therefore, whoever is concerned of Iran because of the nuclear issue, I think he will have, or she will have to wait. Why I think it's significant change? Because the change came not voluntarily. If I ask myself, what is the main reason that people in Iran supported with significant support, they backed Rouhani? I can tell you this is because of the economic sanctions that Iran is facing with. For years, when I was speaking, I said, well, it's extreme, sanctions cannot help, sanctions cannot. I can tell you, Iran made many concessions in its philosophy, never voluntarily, always when they had to. I'll give you one example, and it's the magnitude of change we are expecting today. If I ask myself, what is a similar decision made by the Iranians that Khamenei or Rouhani are facing. This was the decision in July 1988 to end the war between Iraq and Iran after 8 years. After 8 years that Khomeini went all the way, say, like they say, death to America, say war, war until victory. One day they realized that the price they are paying for the continuation of the war is unacceptable with number of casualties that they have, and they're paralyzing the economy. Khomeini faced the nation on television, and you know what he told them? It would have been sweeter for me to drink poison than sign an agreement with Saddam Hussein, but we don't have a choice. Iran came very close to the point of willing to drink this poison of speaking the way they speak, although I'm not happy with the way they speak. The way they speak to the United States is because they don't have a choice. So he's not doing you a favor when he comes here. And you asked about Obama. I can tell you, when I saw that the Iranians are unwilling to shake the hand of your president as an Israeli citizen, I was unhappy with. I was offended. And they are not there to dictate to you or shake the hand or not shake the hand. I think it's something that it's difficult to understand. But it shows not only the willingness of Rouhani to go forward, but also the limits of his ability to do so. Now, not that I'm trying to explain and understand him. I want you to see the complexity of his situation. On the eve of the Jewish New Year, someone tweeted to him, the daughter of one of your congresswomen, that rather than speaking so much, they should distance themselves from this idea of denial of Holocaust. The foreign minister Zarif tweeted back and said that the only man in Iran, he was not the only man, but the only one Iran who denied the Holocaust is not with us anymore, Shana Tova. I was happy with this. I thought it's good. I went the following morning to see the newspapers in Iran. Wow, yeah, what kind of criticism. Now you have Rouhani facing the NBC and being asked a very simple question that has a very simple answer. Would he disclaim or retreat or dissociate himself from the statement of his predecessor that the Holocaust was a myth? There was only one answer to this issue. Rather than answering, he said, I am not an historian, I am a politician. He proved that not only that he's not a historian, he's not also a good politician. Politician could have found a different way to answer this question. Now, you don't have to be historian to know that there was a Holocaust, for God's sake. Now, I'm not here to do discount and ask you to understand him. When I saw what they did to Rouhani, I could understand why he's unwilling to go all the way and say a simple statement. So here you see the limits of his ability to move on issue that no one in Iran will claim anything. The Iranian citizen, they are not against the Jews. They are not against, God knows, we benefited. The most important thing in my life as an Iranian Jew that was born in Iran, remembering Cyrus the Great and the liberties he has given to the Jews and to go and build a temple. The people of Israel don't hate the Iranians. And I doubt that the Iranian people wake up in the morning and they ask themselves, well, what can I do today to destroy the Jewish state of Israel? We are for them what in Persian they say, a low wall that you can step on it. They used us. Wherever there was difficulties at home, that to Israel, and Israel is to be blamed. And maybe many of them also believe that Israel is moving the entire world. Now, having said this, Rouhani himself is part and parcel of the Islamic Revolution, which is, on one way, shows that he will not be able to go all the way. On the other hand, it's good because if he is part of them, he may be able to convince them. Which way we will go from here, I don't know. The man was for 4 years the chairman of Iranian Parliament Committee of foreign relations, 4 years head of the Committee of Security, Defense. He was 16 years the head of the Security Council of Iran for 16 years, many of them as the personal representative of the Supreme Leader, so he is part of them. It doesn't mean that he will not do anything, but it shows that he is one of the revolutionaries, and he was elected, among others, because he was considered faithful. Still, he was the most pragmatic out of all the other candidates for the presidency. Now, I'll give you two issues to share with you that I'm not sure that you hear them in the media, that will help you to decide how seriously you can take this change. One is, the man was in 2003 to 2005, he led the Iranian team negotiating with the Europeans on the nuclear issue. And he was responsible for suspension of the nuclear program for 2 years. Now, a week before the elections, he was challenged on television in an interview that, but you are the man who suspended the nuclear program. He said, I suspended the nuclear program? I completed it. And he went on to enumerate all the development in the nuclear program that was done in the 2 years of the so-called suspension. So I asked myself, there is a change. Is the change tactical or strategic? And then people tell me, well, Khamenei is supporting it. Well, I can tell you what Khamenei said. You can charge for yourself. Khamenei used this term, is very favorite for him because he translated the book and the subtitle was Heroic Flexibility. And it should be translated, I think, into English as flexibility of the champions.
The what?
Champions. Like in box or what kind of athletic games. And he said it's like a box match in which one of them is going to be defeated and he pauses for a moment as a sign of heroic flexibility, but he never loses sight who is the enemy and what the next step should be. So this is in Khamenei. They cannot give you all this explanation because that's why you need some professor to come, stupid, who reads everything, to come and tell you what is the real thing. The other thing that he said in the same speech, he mentioned the agreement made by Imam Hassan, the second Imam of the Shiite, the son of Imam Hussein, which is enemy Sunni Muawiyah, which was a tactical agreement because he was almost defeated. And the continuation was supposed to be later on. So when I hear this heroic flexibility, I still don't know if the change is real or not. Let me look at the positive side and say that yes, there was a significant change in Iran, a signal by the young people of Iran that enough is enough. They signaled first in 2009 and went to the street, and the West did not come to their help. For 10 days, your president didn't say a word about the young people demonstrating in the streets of Tehran. And I don't want to say that had he said something, it could have changed reverse history, but I didn't hear from Washington what it was said later on in 2011 to Hosni Mubarak, he must go now. And the young people of Iran, their intention is very clear. They want good life. They want to go back to the ideas of the first, when they went to the streets in 1979, fighting for bread and freedom. One of their slogans was, where is my vote? Well, the elections were not free. And the young Iranians say that there is a new field of studies in Iranian universities which they call election engineering. So they didn't have to count the vote. It was clear. This time they counted. That's why last time it took half an hour to count all the votes of 40 something million people voted. This time it took them more than a day. But it's but go and see who voted for him. The poor people in Iran, the ethnic minorities, the women, the youth. In Qom, the holy city of Qom, he won 39% of the votes. In Kurdistan, he won 73%. Because this was people who are desperate. In 2009, everything goes with Iran with 9, you know. In 1979, that was 1999, 2009, well, maybe wait until 2019. But where is my vote was one of them. And this time you could hear another thing. Where is my oil money? And revolutions begin not only, certainly in the Middle East, not only when you say, where is my vote and I don't have democracy. Under the banner of democracy, you cannot unify millions of people in the streets. Unfortunately, you need the other socio-economic element. Where is my oil money? The amount of money came into this country from 1979 could have been sufficient at least to secure better life for many people in Iran than it is today. So these are the combination. Now there is another element for which the Islamic Revolution started in 79. As I said, bread, freedom, and the third one is dignity, respect. That Iran should be respected. They are so sensitive and nationally proud. If you read statements by Foreign Minister of Iran, you would be amazed how many times they use the word respect, respect, respect. All of a sudden they realize that there is a disrespect to the Iranians. And you know what Rouhani was on his election slogan was? I am going to bring back to you the value of the rial, the Iranian currency, and the value of your passport. It's very telling, you know. I want to give you back the value of your passport. That you travel in the world, you can travel in the world, and you will be respected. And so I think that the change, people who were behind him were genuinely wanted to finish with this saga and start moving ahead. The Iran also realized that they are weak. Unlike many people think that Iran is such a strong country and they can do whatever they want. Iran is not a strong country. They agreed to do what they have done, the show of charm here in the streets of New York and the UN, not because they are strong, but because they are weak, because they are desperate. I met people who have been very close to influential people in Iran, and I heard the messages coming both publicly and not publicly from this team who came to New York. The message is of desperation, of difficulties, of asking help to remove the sanctions. They even wanted to have meeting with the leaders of the Iranian Jewish community. And they invited the leaders of the Iranian American Jewish Federation in New York and the Iranian American Jewish Federation of Los Angeles. I've been involved in this, and I was hesitant to tell them which way to go. I honestly, until I saw the interview with Rouhani about the Holocaust, what he said. And by the way, they didn't go. Well, it doesn't mean that Rouhani did not have Iranian guests. It's not difficult for President of Iran to invite 10 people, Iranians, in the, I don't know, somewhere in Long Island. You just go to Great Neck and find many of them. But the organized Iranian Jewish community, they refused to go. And the discussion was with all kind of institutions here. I don't want to go into detail. And they decided not to go. He brought with him the representative of the Jews in the Iranian parliament, in the Majlis. So everyone is fascinated. Well, when is Netanyahu going to bring with him an Arab representative of the parliament when he comes to the UN? For God's sake, if the Arab representative of the Israeli Knesset would have praised Netanyahu every day and night the way that Jewish representatives praises the regime in Iran, he would have come. But I'm trying to say that the Iranian Jewish representative is not free man. I don't criticize him. Whenever Iran wanted to criticize Israel, they have the Jewish the representative parliament. No matter who he is, he will come to speak on their behalf. Even people like me who think that Iran is, the vote in Iran, the support for Rouhani came from people who wished him to go forward and to remedy these difficulties that Iran is facing with the United States. Doubt if Rouhani is capable to do it. But even if he is capable, when we speak about a nuclear issue, we are speaking about something so significant, about which they worked hard to establish consensus. It's very difficult to retreat from it. Still, what has been done here and the exchange of letters with President Obama is not insignificant. But again, not shaking the hands of the president shows the limits of he fears what will happen back home. And when it comes to the nuclear issue, the question is time. What is our problem? If there is one reason that Iran agreed to accept change, and I said I think that there is a change, but if there is any reason, good reason, if I ask, what is the main reason for the change? I will say the American or European pressure. The transatlantic alliance that pressured Iran, the American Jewish Committee, AIPAC, and others have been very influential and very active on this idea. And many people say, well, this is nonsense. It's not going to change. I'll tell you, this is what changed. What brought them to the negotiation table is the pressure that they felt. Now, what they're asking is to the West is to remove the only reason that brought them to negotiation. This is crazy. I don't know how it's possible. How the world can accept to remove the pressure that was the prime, if not the sole, cause of their agreement to negotiate. Then you need time. Unless, there is diplomatic acrobacy that I don't know how these acrobats can come and fix and bring a ladder and two people will come to negotiation. There is one side which I think that it's positive, is that, until now, when Iran was strong, or when Iran was weak, they proposed negotiation and agreement. Americans felt strong and they refused, and vice versa. The bright side that I see in the situation today is that the two sides are weak. And when I spoke like this, I was in one of the television stations, and that's one American told me, Obama is not weak. Well, I've heard what Obama say to the Iranians, that they should learn from the Syrian saga that we are strong. And we threatened, drawn red lines, they imposed, then made an agreement from position of strength. That's not what I read in Iranian newspapers. When I read in Iranian newspaper was not that America is so strong, on the contrary. And I heard that there is another strong man. And when I was asked what I should suggest to do for the Israeli government, I tell you what to do. I would have gone to Russia today to speak with Putin. I would go and send my diplomats to all the leaders of European countries to maintain the transatlantic alliance. This is the mission of people who want to support peace in the Middle East today. It's not to remove the sanctions, to make sure that there is no crack in this wall that stands Western united front against the Iranians. If any country, be it German, France, Italy, or whoever, would retreat from these sanctions, that's, I think, the best gift given to Iran. They are waiting to see the cracks here, and I think that the West is waiting to see the disagreements there. Iran is a country that responds to pressure. God knows how many people I said it, and always they say, well, it's not, with pressure you cannot go. There is no other way. Iranian history is full of examples that when you pressure and pressure sufficiently, the Iranian would somehow change their policy. My message is that the solution to the Iranian nuclear program does not rest exclusively or not even mainly in Tehran. It is in the capitals of European countries and Western democracies. You are not that weak. I think that you are waiting to favor to be done to you. We cannot wait to see what Iran is doing. You have, I think, that show that the strength of Western civilization. I know for many years everyone asked when Israel is going to do A, B, or C, and I heard what Bibi Netanyahu had to say about what Israel is capable to do if it's forced to do something. But I want to tell you the problem of Iran going nuclear is not the problem of the state of Israel alone. It's the problem of Western civilizations. It's the Western problem of the Middle East. Go and ask the Saudis how they feel about Iran going nuclear. And it's also the problem of Israel. So I think the expectation that Israel should be the country that will do the job, it's problematic. Saudis, rather than encouraging Israel to do it, they are a neighboring country. Like, go and do it yourself. Saudi Arabia is one of them. What about Egypt and other countries in the Middle East? You know, this Islamic revolution did not come into being because of the state of Israel or against the state of Israel. We are not that important. Now I speak as an Israeli, and I know the limits of our power. We are not that important. The Jews of Israel are more or less half of the city of Tehran. You don't go to such a big revolution because of tiny, small Israel. The philosophy of this revolution is that the Western world has been based on two pillars: Western capitalism and Russian or Soviet communism. One of them has gone, the turn of the other is soon to come. Islam is the ideology of the future. If you have such an ideology, Israel is really insignificant. And finally, when I ask myself, who can bring real change in Iran, substantial change in Iran, I think that we don't have to look outside. We have to look to the people of Iran. The generation of young Iranians who are frustrated and disillusioned from the realities of life, they will one day wake up and start moving new direction. I don't have any doubt about it. Iran is the only country in the Middle East in which people really made history. You know, we are all fascinated or not by the Arab Spring, so to speak. This was the first time in the history of the Arab countries in which people went to the street and made the change. And let me tell you what Iranians have done. Iran is the only country in the Middle East which had a constitutional revolution from 1906. Iran is the only country in the Middle East which has Islamic revolution. Iran is the only country in the Middle East, and one of the very few in the world that had two big revolutions in the 20th century. In between, they have another two mass movements, people going to the streets and changing really the fate of their policy. So I don't have doubt that the young people of Iran will be one day doing it. The problem is time, again. Although I'm confident that the people one day will raise their voice, I cannot tell you when. Because mass movements in history don't have this good habit of ringing the bells and tell you, beware of day so-and-so, 14th of July, there's going to be French Revolution, Russian Revolution, Islamic Revolution, anti-Mubarak Revolution. Who of you have foreseen Mubarak being removed in 2 weeks? I lived in Iran before the Islamic Revolution. Did I see the revolution coming? And believe me, I'm not that stupid. I couldn't see it. Because we saw the disillusionment of the people. We didn't know how the government will behave and what the President of America would say at that time. So we have, although the ingredients are there, the disillusionment of the young people is there, we don't know. In the meantime, the centrifuges, to quote the title that Isgab has phrased for my talk, are spinning. And here, as I would say, we are in a situation in which 2 trains have already left the terminal in Tehran. One train is carrying a message of domestic change in the country, of a greater magnitude than what we have seen recently. And the other the other train is carrying the message of nuclear Iran. And unfortunately, even now, I think that the nuclear train is driving faster than the social train, although recently, I think the social change has been somehow accelerated. I did not hear so far that the other train has slowed down. There's something that I keep in mind for a long time, over 45 years, and I keep thinking about it, is that in 1967, we won a war in 6 days, in June 67. And the closest associate of President Nasser, Hassanin Haikal, was challenged to answer how come the Arab armies collapsed in 6 days. And his answer was, while we the Arabs were playing backgammon, the Israelis were playing chess. It's very meaningful. And I think today the Iranians are playing chess and the Western world is playing backgammon, throwing the dice and praying for luck. And that's really the way I see it. But then you have to realize realities of life. People are fed up with wars, including myself. I can understand the people who don't want to go to war. I can understand President Obama, that he is faced as a president, the commander of your armed forces. He looks at Britain and says at Parliament what is being said in Parliament, that they are unwilling to cooperate, and the public opinion in America doesn't want, and probably he himself didn't want to begin with. So it's a difficulty. That there was a beautiful caricature in Haaretz the day before yesterday, I think, showing the building of the UN transparent. You can see what's going inside. Everyone is dancing and clapping, and the party goes on. And here is Netanyahu carries his drawing from last year with the red lines and the bomb. The people don't like it. He's becoming. They don't like the party must go on. They don't want someone to spoil it. So I don't say it as a justification to anything. I think that the world is really unwilling to consider the real challenge coming from Iran and Iran becoming nuclear. So I don't think that right now you have to go to war, and I don't think Netanyahu has to go to war, God forbid. But I think that today is the time that the West will wake up and at least will not retreat from the pressure on Iran. I am not against dialogue. I really believe that it's possible. And I can tell you that Israel was not entirely against dialogue in 2009. Not that we have a choice. We didn't have a choice, but it's not improving relations between Iran and the United States is not necessarily against the interests of the State of Israel. And not only that I believe in it, I heard it from prominent Iranians recently, telling me, they always attribute to us more power that we have, that we don't have illusion that Iran cannot improve relations with the United States, and while Israel and Iran are beating each other publicly or not publicly, with the Hamas and Israel are fighting with each other. I think there is something in it. If Iran wants to go to some process with the United States, this, at least that I can say, not necessarily against the interests of the State of Israel. Maybe something good will emerge from it, and I've written about it in greater details. See, I'm trying to understand the Iranians. I don't expect the Iranians to give nice statements about Israel today. And I've said more than that. I would not judge the Iranians merely on basis of their anti-Israeli statements. I can understand them. Why? Because if you are a revolution and you have only two banners in hand, anti-Americanism and anti-Israel, you want to lower them down. You cannot do both of them together. It's really difficult. So I can understand for the time being. And there is some slight change, you know, and for this you have to have better eyes than I have. See what is the terminology used by Khamenei and by Rouhani. Khamenei says that Israel is a cancer that should be removed. Rouhani has done us a great favor. In the Jerusalem Day, a couple of months ago, he said that Israel is a wound. Now, of course, when you speak with Iran, you say, well, it is not cancer. Cancer should be removed. Wound can be remedied. So we are still in a position that someone can remedy us. But this is really, to go to these nuances, it doesn't show much difference. And mainly, it shows that Rouhani, also when he speaks about Israel, is very critical. Having said all this, I would agree that it's dialogue should take place. I'm entirely for dialogue, but with eye on one thing, that the clock is ticking. And while you go to dialogue, you also have to know what questions to ask. I remember 16 years ago, it was 16 because Khatami was elected. I was asked in a lecture in Washington Institute, what are the questions to ask? When I said that you should have to ask them, I said, I am a teacher. Taught all my life in university, and when I give exam to my students, I want to be in a position to be able to grade the answer, if it passed or not. So you have to ask questions in which there is clear yes or no. Why? Because the Iranians are very smart. If you go to dialogue for 6 months, I can tell you right now what is the answer. It will range between yes, but, to no, however. Being good diplomats, they would not say begin with no. So you have to tell them. So what can you ask them? For example, at that time I said, cancel this fatwa against Salman Rushdie. It's very important at that time if they were doing it. Don't support the Hezbollah. Here we can say in one day, they did or did not do. And when you come to the nuclear issue, tell them, stop your, we don't want you to be military nuclear weapon. Do you have nuclear? So we don't have it. We don't want it. There is a fatwa by Ayatollah Khamenei that a nuclear weapon is against the principles of Islam. You buy it? I doubt. The question is not Iran will be nuclear or not. It's when, under what political circumstances, because what worries us is not that Iran going nuclear. It's because the combination of nuclear power in the hand of radical regime. I don't have anything. If Japan has nuclear capabilities for industry, or Switzerland, that's not the problem. So I think this being the problem, I think our concern is real. How much they will be willing, I think that, again, if the world will be united, speak about the human rights in Iran, pressure Iran, not only sanctions, human rights, women rights. Rouhani became president, and there is not a single woman in his government. Go and ask him why. And there are many other issues that you can pressure Iran sufficiently, they will postpone. And all of it you don't ask them is to postpone. And make sure that the nuclear program, if there is something, is transparent and under control of other countries. Striking militarily Iran by Israel is not an easy task. It's not mission impossible, but it's certainly not easy. It is likely to have consequences for a long time. And the dilemma Israel faced with is what is how we should go. It is should Iran have a bomb or it should be bombed? Either you accept that they have the bomb or you decide that it's unacceptable and go to bomb. I think that the Prime Minister of Israel made his intention very clear. It's been said again and again. Israel will find it impossible to tolerate Iran going nuclear, or even militarily nuclear. And I think that it's wise to wait to see that the world would do whatever it's possible. I hope that we'll not get to the point that anybody will have to attack Iran militarily. I hope even more that Israel will not do it. there is no prime minister of Israel who would like to see Iran going nuclear under his watch. And it certainly includes Netanyahu. I think the main question is not whether or not Iran would use the nuclear bomb against Israel. I think that the very possession of nuclear weapon is unacceptable. That's the problem. See how the world would look like where this kind of radical regime holds nuclear weapon on the other hand. And I think this is the problem. And what will the oil price look like? What will Hamas and Hezbollah will be doing operating under the nuclear umbrella? So I think that 20 years ago, we were discussing in Israel whether or not Saddam Hussein will send missiles to attack Israel. Some people thought he would, some say he would not. He ultimately did. I think that we should not put Iran to make the call to use or not to use, so it's better that he will not have it.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support Shalom TV with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double high or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the Shalom TV website homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM. To GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive on DVD with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.